Virtues just changed again. And this time, it's a big one. Prisms are out, a slider is in, and you can finally fine-tune courage, spirit, and grace exactly how you want per loadout. So whether you're just getting your footing, or you've already been walking this path for a while, this one's for you. Today, I'll walk you through these basic loadouts that cover just about every playstyle, with enough flexibility to adapt to whatever gear you're using. In Preludes 14.5, Virtue Prisms were removed and replaced with Virtue Liths, which lets you manually reshape your Virtue alignment using a slider. You can access this from the Virtue bubble in the arsenal. Select Rebalance, and fine-tune your Courage, Spirit, and Grace ratio before confirming your setup. And importantly, each loadout saves its own Virtue distribution, so once it's set, you don't have to rebuild it every time. You can earn more Virtue Liths through things like Sieges, Omen Beasts, and Ancestor Fables. But it's worth keeping in mind, these aren't something you'll want to spend freely. Depending upon where you're at, you might only have a handful to work with. I've got quite a few saved up right now, but that's mostly from earlier systems. So instead of constantly adjusting your virtues, it's better to think of these as setting a foundation you can adapt to different builds. What this really gives you is flexibility. Instead of building one setup and constantly adjusting it, you can create a few stable loadouts and swap between them depending upon what you're doing. Now, let's quickly refresh ourselves with how our three virtues work. Courage is your foundation for survivability and frontline combat. It grants more life per point than the other virtues, and it impacts scaling for many heavier melee weapons. If you want to stay in the fight and take the pressure head on, this is where that strength comes from. Spirit is tied to magic. It impacts scaling for magic-based weapons and reduces cooldowns on pact abilities as it increases. So it's not just about damage, it's about how often you can use your abilities. Grace is your precision virtue. It reduces your detectability and stealth and improves headshot scaling, and adds a lethality multiplier to certain attacks like ambushes and finishers. If your playstyle is about positioning, timing, and control, Grace is what supports that. So now that we understand what each virtue does, let's turn that into something practical. This first setup leans into Spirit with the Grace as support. This works really well with packs like Oskelda or Garen Rude, where you're consistently using magic to stay mobile. This gives you a strong baseline for spirit-based play, but it's flexible enough to adapt to other packs that rely on consistent ability usage. For your primary, you'll want a magic weapon, something that scales directly with spirit and supports your ability usage. As a secondary, Flyblades or a short blade like Waitan are great choices, giving you quick follow-up damage or a fallback when enemies get too close. This setup is all about keeping your abilities flowing, while staying flexible in how you approach each fight. This one centers on Courage, with Grace supporting it. You can pair this with packs like Tethrin or Bromius, focused on staying in the fight while still maintaining control. This setup gives you a solid frontline foundation, but still works across different packs that lean into melee or sustained combat. For primaries, this is where heavier weapons shine. Needle's Eye as a great sword, or long blades like Ignamora or Narash work really well here. Ignamora in particular even includes Grace in its scaling, which fits naturally into this kind of a hybrid setup. You can also run Bog and Myrtle if you want a more defensive approach with a shield. For your secondary, a short blade like Grin or Nettle works really well, giving you faster follow-up pressure between heavier swings. This setup is about controlled aggression. You're durable, but still want to be able to adapt in the moment. This setup leads with grace, with courage supporting it. Pairs well with packs like Duello or Siren, where positioning and timing matter more than staying committed. This gives you a precision-focused framework, but it can flex into different packs that reward positioning and timing. For your primary, long blades like Espadarte are a strong hybrid option, and bows like Blitzel or Avex work really well for precise range damage. These bows naturally align with both grace and courage, which fits perfectly into this setup. For your secondary, Flyblades are one of the best pairings, giving you extra pressure without fully committing to an attack. This setup is all about choosing your moment, striking cleanly and then resetting for the next opportunity. So instead of rebuilding your stats every time, you set these once using Virtue Liths and save them to 3 different loadouts. From there, it's just swapping between them, depending upon what you're doing. Virtues also affect things like attunement and scaling on your equipment. So aligning your virtue setup with your gear naturally makes everything feel stronger. So with Virtue Liths, it's less about choosing a preset and choosing a constellation to align yourself with. Set your foundation, keep your loadouts clean, and build from there. Alright, Envoy. I'm headed back to the stars. I'll see you in the next one.